told you before we jumped in that your story, the parallels with my son's story are remarkable. And so it hit me in 10, 15 different ways. And we could probably talk for 3 hours, but we'll do our best to condense this in 30 or so. I appreciate you being on.
Of course.
So here's my immediate reaction, Chris, when I saw several of your interviews, but in your story, but my immediate reaction was twofold. One was, as a top athlete, you're basically told that, look, you're not going to be able to walk, let alone wiggle a toe, right? I mean, that's what you were dealt. And second reaction of mine was, of course, my son's story, my wife and I's reaction to that. So I guess one opening question is, how about a little bit of the backstory for the listeners that maybe for some strange reason haven't seen the documentary yet? A little bit of the backstory. You busted your butt to play. What season was this? Was this the very first play? A little bit of a history for them for context.
Yeah, for sure. So I was 18 years old, college football player. I'm playing for a smaller private school in Northeast Iowa. It was my freshman year of college. So I was living the dream. At least I thought I was. Just an 18-year-old independent guy. Sixth game of the season. I'm playing more than any freshman on the squad. And we're trying to mount a comeback against one of our rival schools. And so I'm on the kickoff team, and I line up on the far right side. The ball is kicked, sprinting downfield as hard as I possibly can go. I see an opening forming. My instincts are telling me that guy, that ball carrier, he will run through that hole. You have to stop him. So I dive at his legs at full speed, full force, but I mistimed my tackle by a split second. Instead of getting my head in front of the ball carrier, my head collided right with his legs. In an instant, I lose all feeling and movement from my neck down. I'm just lying there motionless. I'm calm, and I'm collected, I'm conscious, not in any pain. I just cannot move or feel a thing. No matter how hard I try to push off the ground, like someone just flipped the power off to my body. I had no idea at the time, but I suffered a severe spinal cord injury. And from that moment on, my life would completely change.
Yeah. And I remember when you were talking to our buddy, Ed Millette, our mutual friend, so you thought at first, I think if I remember the story correctly, well, I'll be okay. Like maybe this is just a little glitch and maybe it'll come and then when did that change? How long did it take? Literally while you're on the ground still, where you went, oh, it's not good.
When I was on the ground, I thought it was a stinger. So just like a pinched nerve in my shoulder, it causes kind of numbness and tingliness. You can't really move or feel anything temporarily, but then it comes back. I've had a play similar when I was in high school, and I was able to come back out a couple minutes later, just missed a couple plays, and I was fine. I'm thinking same thing, but as time went on, nothing was coming back, even after a couple minutes. And the clock just kept ticking. The athletic trainers are all there. They're asking me questions like, Chris, can you make a fist with your hand? I try squeezing my fingers, making a fist with my hand, and nothing happened at all. They asked me, Chris, can you feel us touching your legs? And I couldn't feel a thing. And these questions just kept going on. And I began to become more frustrated because the answer was always no. And the fear inside me was just rising. And then I hear the athletic trainer calling for a helicopter. That's when I know this is bad. This is a severe football injury in my possibly life altering. So I closed my eyes and I tried to block it all out because I could not accept the reality that was unfolding before me. It was a nightmare. And I thought, bad things happen to other people. They happen to people you read about in the newspaper, you watch on television, or maybe a guest on your podcast, but there's no way something bad could be happening to me. And so I did my best to pray and block it all out.
So here's what just went through my mind as you were saying that. So you're in the helicopter, literally, and your thoughts were there. Do you remember when the thoughts, it could have been weeks, a day, an hour, when the thoughts started changing to, okay, I got to work on a solution, and that you were comfortable with, not comfortable, but knowing I got to fix this and I can. Do you know when that kind of took place?
Yeah, what comes and goes, right? There's plenty of moments of determination. I'm going to beat this. I'm going to do everything I can do to make it happen. But then there were also plenty of moments where I felt like the walls were caving in. I felt hopeless. I wanted to give up. So when I was told from the surgeon after waking up from surgery, he told me, Chris, you have a 3% chance to ever move or feel below the neck. And that's not a 3% chance to walk. It's a 3% chance to move or to feel, to scratch an itch on your face, to feed yourself. And it was so overwhelming because, the day before I was walking, I was suiting up for my college football game. And all of a sudden I'm lying in the hospital, paralyzed from the neck down, unable to move or feel. And at first I'm numb to it all. But then I get really mad and I become determined I'm going to be part of that 3%. I'm not going to be part of that 97%. And I will do whatever in my power to change it. So right away, I had this kind of reckless abandon stubbornness that I will prove them wrong. I will be part of that 3%. And that happened most of the day. Like during waking hours, I was like that. At nighttime, going to bed, that's when my fears and doubts would come pouring out. I would question everything. I would be thinking about my future. What could I could have done differently in the past? And that just robs you of your motivation, your joy when you think about the monsters that are up ahead or what you could have done differently in the past. And what I found, I had to really train myself, and it's not easy, but to stay in the moment, stay present. What can I do in this moment? Because you don't live in the past or the future. You live right here now, right? And that's the only thing you can control. That's the only thing you can do. And I knew that I had to keep my mind at that level because as soon as I start wandering down the road or behind me, it killed me of my motivation.
Wow. I mean, so that challenge is a little bit different than what I'm going to throw at you for a question. But so we, as you know, are in the real estate business. We train investors, and that's the wicked smart listener community listening right now. So is there a technique? Is there a trigger, to Tony Robbins' word, or anything you do to go snap out of it? Like when the drunk monkey comes and says, "Uh-oh, the demons are coming." Is there something you do to trigger it, or thought, or anything that causes you to go back into your space that's a little more positive? Anything at all?
Well, I don't try to react quickly or impulsively because our emotions, they cloud our perceptions. Mm-hmm. And then when you have poor perceptions, you make poor decisions. And so I knew that when I'm feeling emotional and have these really strong feelings of doubt, anger, frustration, I can feel that coming on. I can sense when I'm emotional, and I have to question those thoughts. I have to question those feelings. And when you use logic to fight your feelings, that's when you can kind of get out of that cloudiness. I think of our brains as a kind of like a snow globe. And when things are easy going, you can see right through that snow globe. But as soon as an obstacle or challenge shakes things up, it becomes clouded. And a lot of times we want to make decisions when our brain is clouded. That's when we act impulsively. I know for me, I don't make good decisions when I'm angry, frustrated, or upset. And so you kind of have to settle the glitter. You have to things to calm down, to gain clarity, so you can objectively make the next decision, the right decision. And so I always just kind of felt awareness of my feelings and then used logic to fight those feelings and tried to gain a different perspective and gain another perception on what was happening around me because, we could both watch a movie and have different takes on it. So I'm always trying to settle myself and then take another look at it and try to find the good in it, the opportunity and what I can control. That's where my power lies because I refuse to allow what I can't do to paralyze me more from what I can do.
Incredible. And I want the wicked smart listeners to that nugget there, and there's probably 30 that are going to come out of this, and there's probably 5 that already happened, but that nugget there of getting clear, slowing down, and then resetting, is absolutely amazing for anyone in business or life, right? It's incredible. Mm-hmm. I heard you say somewhere, and I think it might've been Ed's interview again. When my son was in an accident, he was in a coma, so he couldn't talk yet, but he would blink and we would communicate. But the doctors would come in and they'd say something negative because that's where they're going usually, not intentionally. And we'd usher him out of the room. I heard you say similar situation. Your parents created an environment where I'll use the word protected. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because that influence going in your brain, my son's brain, it matters. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. My parents definitely protected the environment in the room and what was being said and what not said. We weren't trying to create a false reality. We just wanted to see the possibilities, focus on what we can do and what we can control. And oftentimes when doctors or maybe even some outside people try to come in and try to, you know, give it to you straight, or trying to, wake you up from the reality of the situation. It wasn't helpful. It just made you want to give up and throw in the towel. And so they would literally check people at the door of, what kind of influence are you going to be? And we had several conversations with different nurses and doctors about that. And I'll never forget, I had multiple different doctors that I worked with, but one in particular that I really enjoyed. He always kind of left the door open for hope and for the possibilities. Instead of telling you, Chris, you're going to need this medical equipment, you're going to need around the clock nursing and a high-low chair, bed, and power chairs, and all these things that as an 18-year-old independent guy before, I did not want. I didn't want to hear about everything they needed to set me up with. But how he would communicate it to me was, Chris, let's get you these things and hope you don't have to use it. Hopefully you can donate and give it back, but let's set you up with the worst case scenario. And eventually you can peel back some of these resources and services. Maybe you don't need as big of a chair or these other equipment we want to send you home with, but then we can, dial it back, and you can, like I said, donate it. Where there's other people who said, Chris, you're going to have to live like this the rest of your life. You will need this, and this is how it's going to be. And it's like, you're not a fortune teller. You can't tell the future. And I hated how people would just close the door on any and all possibilities. And so that's the people that we wanted to work with. That's who I gravitated towards. I would literally, there was physical therapists, occupational therapists that I stopped working with because A, didn't see the possibilities and didn't have that hope for making a difference, or B, they weren't pushing me hard enough. And so it's really important, and you're intentional about finding the people and the environment that's going to build you up, that's going to help you see the possibilities and what you can influence and what you control, versus the people who are trying to limit your expectations and try to limit really your abilities.
So your environment, that's another huge nugget for the Wicked Smart listeners. Your environment kind of matters a whole big bunch.
Yes.
Absolutely amazing. I remember you talked about environment. One of your nurses, I think it was Georgia, if I'm not mistaken, was super, super positive with you. And again, the parallels with your story, we had the same situation, where there was one in particular who really gave the light. So talk about environment. Let's take it to the next level and just talk about her a little bit and how that affected you. And I'm actually curious if you have a relationship now where you keep in touch.
Yeah, you're referring to Georgia, and I met Georgia on the fourth night of the hospital stay. It's the middle of the night, and it's not just the worry that keeps me up late at night, but also every 2 hours, a nurse comes in to check my vitals, and their interaction with me is all clinical or routine. They all do the same thing, check it and leave. Well, on this night, this nurse does something no other nurse has ever done. She not just checked my vitals, but she came over to my bedside. She got down on one knee, and she says, Chris, look me in the eyes. And she was kind of mean about it. And so I lock eyes with her. She's a short, slender woman, short reddish hair, glasses, probably in her 60s. And she's got this voice that sounded like she came straight out of a Western movie. She says, my name is Georgia. I'm from Wyoming. Do you know anyone from Wyoming? I say no. I'm just thinking, okay, where is this going? She says, well, people from Wyoming don't tell lies. And I want you to know, you will beat this. You will beat this. I instantly start crying. I needed to hear those words so badly, because up to this point, I was still questioning whether all my time and effort, would it really ever pay off? And in this moment, because of Georgia and her 4 words, I felt my faith restored. And it just gave me the confidence to sell out, don't hold back, and give it everything you got. And those like 4 words of just saying you will instead of you can, I think was a really profound difference. It gave me total victory over my future and helping me project a better future than what I was seeing in my head, versus, hey, you're doing well right now. But I think when you can phrase it in a way of you will, and giving somebody that future projection is really powerful. And she gave that to me. She gave me hope for a future, and it gave me the strength then to pour in everything I've got each and every day to continue to get better.
Incredible. So again, environment, right? And influence and access to the right people, more and more and more. I quoted one of your things, and I want you to be able to explain it and maybe give some examples. And because you just said the word future, you said it on one of your interviews, your future will take care of itself when you take care of today. And I think that's pretty close. Can you explain that? Because I think, again, I want to say this to Wicked Smart listening community. There are nuggets and literally secrets to success throughout this entire interview. So can you explain that? And again, if you can think of some really cool examples or any examples.
Well, one of the things that we're all consumed with is our future, right? At least I am. I'm always thinking about ahead on what life could look like and trying to create a better tomorrow. And especially when I was in the hospital, thinking about that future, sometimes it was daunting and overwhelming. How am I ever going to get there? I can barely shrug my left shoulder and I want to walk again. There was plenty of moments where I just want to throw the towel right there and then. I'm so far from where I want to be. And those thoughts would mentally paralyze me. And so to get out of that, I had to just focus right here on today. Like, how can I win this day? How can I get better during this 1 hour physical therapy session? And so when I kept breaking it down to these micro moments, just everyday moments, that helped empower me and make my obstacles so much more manageable when you're just working with winning the day and just understanding that if I take care of this day, it's going to create a better future. And I know something Ed Milet says is the kind of the echo of your decisions. Of your decisions have this kind of echo effect where it's going to come back in the future, about 3 to 6 months out. All your decisions will make an effect from there on out. And so I just kind of knew that I got to take care of business right now. I have no idea what my future holds. I have no idea what is going to happen to me, how far I'll get along, but I'm not going to have any regrets. No matter where I end up, I'm going to have zero regrets because I worked as hard as I possibly can. And I know if I can win this day, the future will take care of itself.
I love it. And in business and in life, I always talk about discipline and accountability. I'm curious, like winning each day as a discipline and winning each day, you must hold yourself accountable. Is that correct? First of all, and second of all, what ways do you hold yourself accountable? Because this is, I'm talking to investors, and every single piece of your advice is what we teach magnified by hundreds of thousands because of what you went through. So can you maybe comment on discipline and accountability a little bit and how you react to that?
Yeah. It's a couple ways that I hold myself accountable. One, when I say something out loud, when I tell somebody I'm going to do something, I'm going to follow through. Like, my word, it matters to me. Like, I don't want to break my own promises. And I think that's really important, is just not break your own deals with yourself. Well, I know that I can at times. So what helps me is by telling somebody else, because I might be able to break my own rules or promises, but if I tell somebody else and I break somebody else's word, I hurt my own word. That hurts me. I don't want to do that. So I think telling other people, writing it out. And then also what really helped me stay accountable and focused was just considering the other people who are counting on me, understanding that my example and my actions, my decisions, my attitude, it influences every single person around me. And that's true with anyone. In every situation, like, your example, it matters. And so what I started to think about, where I started to receive messages from people all over the country, just sharing, hey, Chris, your attitude, your effort, determination to overcome this challenge, it's really inspiring to me and what I'm facing with my business. It's inspiring for me when I'm facing with, the troubles I'm having at home with my marriage or relationship with my child, whatever it may be that they're going through. It gave me inspiration knowing that my decisions, my example was impacting somebody for the better. And so I thought about that when I felt like giving up. I couldn't give up on the other people that were around me, and knowing that, if I keep going, they could keep going too. And if I succeed, maybe they'll be more successful as well. And so I always try to think about other people in my life. So now I'm thinking about my family, my wife, my parents, friends, anybody that is going to look to me for direction, I don't want to let them down. And that holds me accountable to be my best version of myself. And so I would just always ask yourself, who is counting on me?
Well, and you humbly said that, you named some people in your center of influence, but you're affecting the whole freaking world right now. You really are, with your documentary and other things. And I just want to remind people, I said it in the intro, but you really need to get over to Netflix or Amazon Prime and watch 7 Yards, because it'll blow you away. There are pieces to this discussion Chris and I are having that are not the entire story. I want every single Wicked Smart listener to go over and look at it and share it. And Chris, I've got a couple more key questions here before we wrap up, but so I don't forget, can you give them your website and how they can support? Because I want to really rally the troops, and I hope that you and I can reconvene at some other point, as I said to you off air, and have you speak to the community, because it's an amazing community and you'd really impact them. So how do they find you? How do they help support? How do they just see more?
I really appreciate that, Chris. My website is chrisnorton.org, chrisnorton.org, just my name.org. And there you can find information about my speaking, my foundation, the Chris Norton Foundation. So we raise money to help strengthen the therapy opportunities for people with disabilities so that they have access to the latest and greatest technology so they can live a healthy and successful life. And then we also have a wheelchair camp for kids and their families. So kids of all abilities, no matter what physical challenges, mental challenges that they're up against, they come to this camp for free and with their families. And we do zip lining, horseback riding, just activities and things that kids with maybe as a quadriplegic or with cerebral palsy never imagined that they could do. We do it at this camp. It's transformational week. And then, so there's connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, all those places. The website's a great place for that.
I appreciate it. And I don't even want to use the word encourage. I urge everybody to go over to chrisnorton.org and support, because when you said equipment, I remember our son was in a wheelchair when he was finally came out of the coma and he was going to therapy, and he couldn't fit in it. So part of our effort for our foundation was, well, let's get some new equipment. And that wasn't cheap, is my point. And you're pouring into it. So every penny, every dime, every dollar, every tens of thousands of dollars helps. So please, guys, go to chrisnorton.org. That'd be super cool for you to do that. And it's over the top good energy to do that. Chris, kind of my last question, again, I could keep going, and I'm going to ask you to share some things if I forgot so much, but I'm here doing what we do with the investment community because of the '08 crash, where I just got beat up in every way, mentally, financially, every way, health. And I wouldn't change a thing now as I look back. I wouldn't, because it's why we're here. Would you change anything as you look back to that accident? Why or why not?
I wouldn't go back and change that play, because it's led to too many opportunities and blessings that I can't imagine living without. That setback really set me up for a more meaningful life. And there's so much good to extract from that one moment in time that I thought was the end of me, but was really just a new beginning, honestly, is what it was. And I'll never forget, actually, I went to go see my former defense and special teams football coach.
Wow.
I wanted to ask him what he remembered from the day of my injury. And as soon as I asked him, tears well up in his eyes. And he says, I'm the one who called the play that day. Wow. To kick it short to the right side of the field. And if I only would have done a normal kick or a kick to the opposite side of the field, none of this would have happened to you. And I was stunned. I had no idea he'd been holding himself responsible for my injury, and there's no one to blame. It was an accident. You can't blame myself or the player I was tackling. And so I felt bad for my coach all these years. He's been carrying guilt. He didn't need to carry. And my response, may be difficult to believe, but it is absolutely true when I say this. And I say, Coach, if you could go back and change that play, I wouldn't let you. I love my life. And while I didn't choose this life, I believe it was chosen for me. And here's the thing, adversity and failure, it's a part of life. And if you try holding on to it, it's going to rob you of your future. Things will never be perfect, but just because you aren't getting the results you want or living the life you dreamed of doesn't mean you stop trying or that's not a life worth living for. And it was actually through the loss of my physical strength that revealed to me what is most important, like family, love, and serving others. I discovered I don't need to walk in order to live a good life. And so when I told him all that, I could see the release in his body, and I absolutely mean every one of those words. I just would not go back. And happiness is not measured in steps. There's people who can run, jump, and swim who are unhappy. So clearly, happiness has nothing to do with your physical strength. It has everything to do with your mindset and your mental health.
Chris, I could talk to you for 3 hours. Every single answer you give, I get goosebumps. You're just an amazing individual in every way. For these guys to get a little taste of what they're going to see in the documentary, you're married, Emily, I believe, and you have kids, you foster kids, you just mentor. It's mind blowing. What is next for you and Emily? Like you're constantly on the go in every way. So what's next?
Yeah, we have adopted 6 kids. Our latest adoption was just this past summer, a little boy. Before that, we had 5 girls. So I was really outnumbered, but I got some reinforcement. But what's next for me? I'm just going to kind of live out my mission of trying to inspire and empower others, continue to do my motivational speaking, grow the foundation, and be a dad and husband. I'm loving the family life. And so those are really my next steps. And something that I'm not pouring into as much is my physical recovery. I really hit that hard for 8 years. I poured thousands of hours and time into that. And just with priorities shifting, I'm not doing as much. I continue to train just to stay healthy like anybody else likes to do, but it's just not as rigorous because again, I realize, that's not moving the needle as much for me, recovery wise, plus priorities of family and serving others is way more important.
Amazing. You're absolutely amazing. Any parting nuggets, anything that you think, especially as a successful, struggling real estate investors, that, all the wicked smart listeners listening right now, any parting thoughts that maybe I didn't ask that you think you might want to share?
I would just say, just understand that sometimes life's lowest moments can be the source of our greatest gifts. No one wants to experience a setback or a mistake or an obstacle, but it's going to happen. And just do whatever you can in this moment today to make the most out of it, to learn from it, grow from it, because all obstacles can be an opportunity for something better and greater. It's hard to see that at first, but with the kind of that right mental fortitude and believing in yourself, focusing on what you can influence, will take you to that next step.
I love it, Chris. We're here to support you in every way. I'm going to make it happen, and I really appreciate you taking the time. It's not lightly taken, so thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate you.